Joining us now is senior writer on national security and diplomacy for the Washington Free Beacon, Adam Kredo. Adam, you recently wrote an article about this where you highlight that under U.S. law, it is impossible to sue foreign governments in court over such behavior like hacking. So what are these military families petitioning to Congress?
Well, essentially what they're trying to do is get this law exempted, a carve-out in it that actually allows them to pursue damages against state-based hackers and others who might be attacking them and holding their personal information hostage. I think what's important to remember here is that under this Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act, which has been U.S. law for decades and decades now, it didn't really account for the Internet. It was created before the Internet age, and like one of the individuals who had been hacked told me, the law is outdated mainly because military families, because of that interconnectedness over the World Wide Web, they are just as at risk oftentimes as their service member wives and husbands who are serving abroad.
Adam, this subject really doesn't get a whole lot of attention, I feel. We don't hear a lot about it. How many families have been affected by this? And then I read in your article there's a story about one specific family. Tell me briefly about that.
Sure. Well, the individual I spoke to, a woman named Lori Volkman, while her husband was stationed abroad, she started on Twitter and other social networks to receive threatening messages. At the time, she thought it was ISIS terrorists, but in fact, what was later discovered is that it was Russia-based hackers who are posing as ISIS terrorists. But that is does not mean that there aren't the threat of ISIS terrorists and certainly Iranian-backed hackers. And I think people ask, why is it that they would go after military families here in the U.S.? And the answer is that they're perceived by Russia and others as softer targets. It's easier to work your way into their computers and then hopefully, because of the work their spouses do, make their way into a federal computer that would be maybe the Defense Department or the Veterans Administration, and then from there siphon off as much personal information as possible. So that's really where the threat level is, not to mention the safety of these individuals. Now, again, because of the Internet, you can actually threaten somebody in their home and have it be a pretty serious threat.
And now I want to talk about the two reps. There's clearly, obviously, protections need to be put into place here that you kind of alluded to earlier, but specifically the Hacked Act. What is that?
So essentially what this legislation would do is amend that Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act to permit these families to sue foreign governments, bring them into court here in the United States, and hold them accountable for their hacks. So we would say carve out to that older U.S. law that allows, and again, not just military families, though they are certainly larger targets, but people like you and I to sue if a state-based hacker were to come after us, and that is steal our credit cards, hold our information hostage, or certainly even worse, threaten us. So all of us would have recourse if this law is actually enacted.
Adam, while we have you, we want to get your thoughts on the al-Qaeda leader being killed in Yemen. What message does this send to foreign governments who are potentially threatening U.S. citizens?
Well, look, this is very much part and parcel of Donald Trump's foreign policy. He's established it very clearly. The assassination, killing by a U.S. drone of Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general, several weeks ago, was certainly the most public example of this. But the Trump administration, actually, much like its predecessor, is continuing to employ drone strikes to kill terrorists when we can. If you fall in our sights and you have committed terror acts, you are most likely going to be killed, or at least attempted to be killed, by the Trump administration. I think that's become very clear over the years Trump's been in office.
Adam Kredo, he's the senior writer on national security and diplomacy for the Washington Free Beacon. Thanks so much.